What's up, team? Today, I'm hoping that I can share some nutrition ideas that you may not be familiar with. If you've been working on reclaiming control of your health and lifestyle, eating healthy, maybe tracking your macros, then this is hopefully going to tie a lot together for you, help you get a lot more results out of your hard work, and do things the right way. I don't believe in starvation diets. I don't believe in just slashing your calories and quickly trying to get as much body fat off as possible. Most of the guys that I work with are trying to perform at the top of their game. They run agencies, they've got high-powered careers that they need to focus on. They don't want their nutrition to just drop body fat. They want it to have them functioning on their A game around the clock. So I'm going to run you through why most men get dieting wrong, and then the exact strategies that we use on my team to create some incredible results. If you want to see how incredible these results are, then feel free to check the link to my website down below, and then you're going to see what some of these guys are achieving, some really extraordinary stuff. So firstly, what do I not believe in? I don't believe in macros as a solution. I believe in it as one tiny tool as part of a solution, but most people think that when they're tracking their macros, when they're hitting that number of protein, carbs, fats, calories, they think that they've got nutrition figured out, which couldn't be further from the truth. The real truth is that macros are too basic. There is a lot more going on than just your proteins, carbs, and fats on a daily basis, okay? These numbers being ticked off throughout the day is actually just the start of your nutrition. It leaves a lot to guesswork. A lot of guys, when they join the team, they're shocked that I actually go build out full example meal plans for them, how I would structure a day of eating based on their favorite meals. I think that things need to be low barrier. If we're going to set up a meal plan, it needs to be something that isn't too far-fetched from what you're currently doing. It needs to be accessible for you to be able to stick to it and jump right onto it. But that's what allows us the next level of detail. Because if I just say to you, okay, eat this many calories, eat this many grams of protein, that doesn't tell you anything about what those meals should look like. This is why you often hear guys still having the afternoon slump, no energy. They don't hit their macros because they don't understand how to make it work in their favor and how to give themselves the least uphill battle. So many guys come to me saying, yeah, I've been trying to track my macros, but I just can't seem to hit my protein intake for the life of me. It's like, well, of course not, because giving you a target doesn't actually teach you how to manage your nutrition. And lastly, macros are just not actually as sustainable as people think. People think that harsh meal plans are unsustainable, but I want you to ask yourself, do you really think you could commit to tracking your food on MyFitnessPal for every day for the rest of your life? Of course not. So this isn't actually a solution. This is something that people parrot as, well, flexible dieting. You can eat whatever you want within these numbers, and they offer it as a real solution. Oh, client, you're going on a business trip? Cool. Well, you don't know what you'll be getting fed, so you've got your macro targets, go figure it out. But if you don't have any preparation work ahead of that, if you're just going off the cuff, you're tracking from scratch each day, got this breakfast, got this lunch, how much have I got left for dinner? Oh, I've still got a tiny amount of calories, but I still got to get in my 60 grams of protein. How am I going to do that? Of course, no one actually gets good results from doing this stuff. Unfortunately, the other side to that is a good old-fashioned meal plan. I've put literally no notes on this side because everyone knows the downsides to this. It allows you that next level of detail. It allows you to plan out, the portion sizes for these meals, what have you. But of course, it means that it's restrictive. You're relying on having the same things every day, and it's relying on perfection. It's just not feasible for most people. It demands, number one, a lot of just grit to try and knuckle your way through a diet with foods that often you don't like, are really boring. And that's why I figured that guys deserve a much better answer. One that encompasses it all, the best of both worlds, keeping things super simple. Now, this will come across a little bit confusing, but the gist of it is what I call my hybrid method. So part of this revolves around what I call my simple swap system, right? So basically, all that this is options for meals, okay? I basically take my client's favorite meals and I will equate a bunch of the portion sizes. I'll say, okay, so for dinner, you could have this, or this, or this. It'll all work out to the same calories and macros. So you don't need to, faff around figuring out how many calories left for dinner. You know that these add up to the same thing. It's going to keep a good structure on what our intake is, but it's still going to give you that flexibility. It doesn't mean that you're just confined to this one meal that I want you to eat forever. So you can switch between with no second guessing. It removes a lot of stress. It removes a lot of food focus and thinking about what food you're going to have. It removes a lot of the decision making. And when you're operating at your highest level, that's also something that's going to hold you back from making great decisions, because obviously you're focused on family, business, what have you. You don't have the brain power to be trying to just manage your fitness off the cuff like that. This is where so many guys go wrong. Another little one that I often use, this is more commonly used in a phase called the reverse diet. This usually follows our fat loss phase, but basically leaves some calories spare either at the end of each meal or at the end of the day. Basically, once again, you know that if you follow that rough plan, if you've used some of those meal options, you know what calories have gone into you. So if we've had 2,000 out of 2,400 calories all already budgeted for, then you get to choose if you're going to have 400 calories worth of one treat or the other, or you can easily save those calories for a bigger meal out on the weekend. And once again, it's just there to give you the best of both worlds. It means that you've got easy tabs on what's gone into you. And of course, that meal plan allows me to give my clients some good structure. Once again, it's very low barrier, but it means that I can recommend those next levels of details to make the process as downhill as possible, not creating loads and loads of barriers. Because if you're trying to track your macros, then once again, you might not distribute things the right way. A lot of clients will come to me struggling with bloating, irregular bowel movements. Their digestion sucks. And yeah, that'll probably happen if you're trying to cram in 3 chicken breasts at 8 p.m., trying to finish off your protein intake. So this really gives us the best of both worlds. Meal plans for some meals, macro plans for other meals. So we've got some of that day budgeted out. You already know what you're going to be eating. Most people eat the same things for breakfast and lunch, no problem. Most people eat really boring things for breakfast and lunch. Most people will have a bowl of cornflakes for breakfast and a Tesco meal deal, the exact same one, pretty much every day for lunch. And this is why I know that realistically, when a lot of people say, I need variety in my dieting, it's like, no, you don't. But dinners is usually what people mean by this. So having a macro target for dinner, we've already nailed some great nutrition habits earlier in the day. Now dinner, just make it fit this calories and this protein. And once again, we've got the best of both. So it means that we get a good amount of optimality and a good amount of convenience in there, easy enough to stick to. And the other thing that I do with my hybrid meal method is just more of a problem-solving approach, okay? The beauty of planning out meals, portion sizes, etc., is if my client is, a doctor or something, they're working different shift patterns, they've got earlies, lates, night shifts, then it just means that I can create a meal plan for each of those days. Maybe I distribute the food and the snacks a little bit differently to keep their hunger satisfied, make it as easy as possible for them to stick to the plan. So once again, instead of, just trying to rely on discipline, instead of trying to wing it and hard knuckle it and just trying to force yourself with grit through a dieting phase, with the right setup, with the right systems, it should be much smoother sailing. So what exactly are my tenets? What do I actually integrate into these example meal plans? What do I think are really important nutrition habits to manage performance and boost fat loss? So firstly, 3+ meals per day. I think that if you're skipping breakfast and just having lunch and dinner, you're missing out on a lot. This is why a lot of people actually find that they've got cravings late at night, even though they're eating more food later in the day. Oftentimes, if you don't have enough food earlier in the morning, that hunger will catch up to you. You stuff yourself late at night, which means that you wake up the next day not hungry, and it's a very vicious cycle to break out of. But the other reason is then what comes next, which is we want 3 to 5 protein feedings. Okay, when we have a good amount of protein, a good amount of certain amino acids, leucine being one of the main ones, we spike muscle protein synthesis to the highest degree. If we can maximize the number of those spikes during the day, then we're going to get better recovery. We're going to, once again, distribute that protein intake, which not only makes it a lot easier to actually tick off the protein target daily. Okay, think it's going to be a lot harder to get in your 200 grams of protein or what have you if you're only eating 2 meals a day. If you're having 4 meals a day and each of them are 50 grams of protein, then there you go, simple as that. You're never going to miss. So that's also going to, of course, help with hunger management. If you're having evenly distributed protein feedings, your hunger is going to be much better managed. You're going to get better recovery from the maximizing of MPS, and you're going to hit your daily protein target with ease as well. It's going to be much easier on your digestion, just all the benefits just from that one habit alone. Within each of those 3 to 5 protein feedings, you're going to aim for 25 grams of protein minimum from a high bioavailable source of protein. So this means sources of protein that are complete. They contain all 9 essential amino acids. This includes pretty much any animal protein and a few veggie sources such as tofu, such as corn. So we want to make sure that we have all those essential amino acids there. Once again, leucine in particular, but a few of those amino acids are going to be particularly responsible for spiking muscle protein synthesis. So your 8 grams of protein in a bagel does not contribute here. 25 grams of protein in that feeding needs to come from a highly bioavailable, complete protein source with the full spectrum of amino acids. Then, once we've got that ticked off, a little bit of a controversial one, but I like to include a little bit of dietary fat with nearly every meal. I put a little bit of an asterisk with every meal because when it comes to training, if you're on very, very high food, then there is argument to say that you just want to soak up those carbohydrates as quickly as possible. The obvious downside with that is that you will be very, very sensitive to insulin. So you may find a little bit of an energy dip as your blood sugars then kind of fall right back down after that quick spike up. And that is mainly why I do like a bit of dietary fat with most meals. Basically helps to slow down our digestion. It lowers the glycemic load of the meal. So especially if you are what we would call more of a gen pop client rather than a competitive athlete, if we want you functioning on your A game throughout the workday, then a big reason why people will find those, afternoon slumps and things like that is their lunch will just be, chicken and rice, not really much any fat in that meal. And therefore, you get that big spike of blood glucose, comes right back down. That leaves you feeling, quite low and often actually craving more carbohydrates and sugar to basically bring those blood sugars back up. So the real key with good quality nutrition is also managing those cravings. There's also a key difference between physical hunger being where if someone offered you a kilo of broccoli, you would munch on that because you're so hungry. And that's, as we said, good consistent feeding times, a good distribution of meals and nutrition is going to help with that massively. But then psychological cravings, more so just being hungry for the wrong things, that's something that we can tick off by better managing our blood glucose as well as optimizing our energy and focus throughout the day. Mostly unsaturated fatty acids, poly and mono unsaturated. So once again, this is mainly for kind of focus, brain health, things like that. Obviously, things like our omega-3s are to be a huge focal point. And what I would say is that with this dietary fat at every meal, this comes full circle back to this idea of the different meal options, okay? So I want you to almost imagine that if you had a lean protein in every meal, so putting together tenet number 2, the 25 grams minimum, 3 to 5 protein feedings. If we were to have chicken and avocado with a meal, right? So we've got our lean protein and we've got our direct fat. Now I want you to imagine that we had basically a similar amount of salmon. And there you're going to get the protein and the fat already, okay? Especially if we're equating for fat sources, so we're going unsaturated for unsaturated, then bonus points. But hopefully you can see how this opens up this cool world of options where you can have this or that, and it'll all kind of add up to pretty much the exact same thing. So that is how I basically kind of integrate fats into the meals as well. So I do like to budget a few fats for every meal, which also means I can enjoy some of those nicer protein sources like salmon, steak. So it really just comes full circle. This is such an easy, once you get used to it, this is how you nail nutrition basically for the rest of your life. I don't track calories at this point because once again, I've got these meals that I know that I love. I organize them into my day of eating. And I know that I can have this or I can have that. I don't have to think about it. I could do this every single day, no problem. I know that for my dinner, I'm going to have X grams of a protein source, either a lean protein source and it's going to have some fats with it, or it's going to be a similar amount of a fatty proteins equated with X amount of fat already there present in the meal from the fatty protein. So this really kind of builds up this framework of my clients where they stop seeing food as numbers to be hit. And not only do they focus much more on the quality of the foods, which is going to do bits for their focus and general health and well-being, but it also allows them to actually go about their nutrition on autopilot with no stress. They're never going to gain the weight back because they've mastered this approach that makes nutrition so easy to manage in real time. It leaves nothing to guesswork. If you're on a business trip if you just make some easy decision making basically around like meals out, things like that, if you're having a steak, if you watch the portion sizes of the potatoes that you have with the steak, you've once again got protein, fats, good balance, bit of carbs in there. When you look at it through this lens of balanced meals and the nutrients that you're having, nutrition becomes a framework that you can eyeball with a good amount of accuracy. And yeah, it's just that simple, really. On top of that, 5+ servings of fruit and veg daily. The key is variety as well, as many colors as possible. Do not be that person that just has greens, 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 broccoli, broccoli, broccoli with every bloody meal, because you do need that variety for your gut health. You want to have a good variety of foods that your body has to basically maintain the microbiome to digest properly. Part of that is obviously including some prebiotic foods. So that would include things like garlic, onions. I'm quite itchy, excuse me. And of course, if we're going on to the topic of gut health, including some probiotic rich foods as well. So fermented foods, kimchi, even yogurt works to a degree. But looking after gut health is seriously, seriously key. About 90% of your serotonin is actually produced in your gut. So if your digestion is giving you red flags that you are not looking after your gut health properly, if you find yourself with excessive gas, excessive bloating, irregular bowel movements, then that is something that is going to play heavily on your brain. There is a huge, huge link between your gut and your brain. So if your energy, if your focus isn't where you want it to be, a big part of that is your nutrition and gut health. So ensuring that some of that is worked into your nutrition is going to be really, really key. So once again, that also comes with maintaining a good variety of bacteria, which means you want a good amount of fruit and veg and a wide variety. The easiest way to do this, because tracking your micronutrients would be even more faffy than tracking your macronutrients. I appreciate getting in a good amount of vitamin A, vitamin B, blah, 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 blah. Massive faff. A huge, huge low-hanging fruit is simply just include many different colors. There's a reason I talked about the greens earlier. Don't just have the greens, have your reds, have your blues, have berries in some meals. In one of your meals, have some green veg, some onions, other things like that. In other meals, have something with other colors, peppers, carrots. Include a wide variety, and you're already going to tick off a huge amount of the micronutrients in the right doses that you will need. Another little hot take is then 80 to 90% whole foods. I'm a sucker for a bit of ice cream. But the day after, my body will typically let me know. So usually you will find that whole foods focus is going to keep inflammation down significantly. Once again, usually this is a lot easier on digestion as well. So if you can keep most of those calories that you're eating from whole foods, yep, for enjoyment, it is more than acceptable to include a little bit of junk, but you will probably thank yourself if the vast majority of your eating revolves around whole foods. So those are kind of a bit of a roundup regarding my main tenets, the additional kind of habits that I promote on top of just, tracking macros, just focusing on the numbers. This doesn't even begin to dig into things like, having your final meal a few hours before you go to sleep so that you can digest that meal and that it's going to, basically not interrupt your sleep. This hasn't even begun to dig into fiber intake. This hasn't even begun to dig into fructose versus glucose and how that can impact your sleep, because fructose feeds liver glycogen, which helps to stabilize your blood sugar, which is important for good quality sleep. So there are so many things that really encompass a good quality nutrition plan, which is why I like to plan this out for my clients. I like to use habits that they currently have in place so I can start them off with a low barrier and build them up over time, create new challenges, say, look, you've been nice and consistent with this. Now I want you to work specifically on the hybrid side of this thing. I want you to get used to basically being able to have different meals off the cuff. I want you to switch things up a little bit this week, see how they manage that. If someone mentions to me that their sugar cravings are excessively high, maybe we'll look at ensuring that, if they've just been tracking their macros, how are we distributing those fats? That's going to have a lot to do with it. What kind of fat sources are we using? Those kind of things. This is how you create real solutions. You need to be educated around how nutrition works. That's what's going to empower you to manage it appropriately. And when you have the tools, it becomes so much easier to do that without the stress. So education is key. If you guys want to work with me to educate you around nutrition, to build plans around every detail of your lifestyle, and to master fitness for life, of course, DM me the word ready on Instagram at kevgomez_coach, or check out the link below. I look forward to chatting, seeing if we would be a good fit to work together. Appreciate you tuning into this one. I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you.